community policing. And recently formed a company, Truett Services, in which we do consulting and seminars and things of that nature, and just formed the company to get awareness out into the community along these lines. Awareness as it relates to interaction with the public in not only policing but other fields, juvenile justice, probation, criminal justice as a whole, just to bring awareness and also the impact of this community policing that it can have, whether it be on the good side of things or the wrong side of things. And thank you all for bringing this topic up, because I think it's very important for the listeners to know and gain awareness of community policing as it relates to dealing with public in this area.
And what do you think are some of the things that people don't necessarily understand about the police and everything? I know that it seems to me, like I mentioned earlier, that I remember growing up, and I'm in my late 50s now, that, there was always that stereotype that the police was the person that you would go to in terms of, like, getting help in society, whether that was, and there were others as well. There was the family doctor. There were people of that nature. But now it seems like a lot of our youth are having almost like this tension between the police, and part of that is because of some bad incidences that have happened in the police force, whether that's been here in North Carolina or around the nation and everything. But what are some of the misconceptions that you've run across, and how are you fighting against those misconceptions and finding ways to get people to understand that police are actually there for their benefit?
Yes. In dealing with community policing and my work, I think first and foremost, what drives effective community policing is the culture and the climate of a particular organization. That culture and climate rolls downhill in terms of leadership, in terms of community, in terms of citizens. And that in that climate, if it's a positive climate within an organization, I think you will get positive results in the community policing aspect. And you're exactly right. I think the community is hurting right now with some interactions, and this is what the awareness is all about, bringing awareness. Police officers, when you come up on a scene, you're already in uniform. It's already a perception there that maybe can go in a negative way and a positive way. So that interaction with the public as a police officer is very, very important in terms of how that situation is going to go. And that can be from response to verbal communication to active listening. And these areas, these small little areas dictate how a situation can go. Because as we know as law enforcement officers, things can go from bad to worse in a drop of a hat. So that interaction with the public is critical when you come up on a scene. Safety is first priority in any situation. Once that safety is once everybody is safe in that aspect, the communication and the effect of that outcome can then be reached. So in community policing, there's several different aspects of community policing: partnerships, organization, personnel, training, problem solving. And the United States Department of Justice have outlined a detailed report of community policing as it relates to these various topics. And again, I think it's pretty much black and it's not a hard situation to digest. It's just a matter of doing, what's right from the law enforcement standpoint as well as the citizen standpoint.
Yeah, because I know that when we've seen bad things happen, it seems like the folks have made decisions that in the public's eye, they might have made decisions that they felt were rash decisions or quick decisions. But as my cousin, who is a GBI officer, has pointed out to me on several occasions, we oftentimes don't know all of what had happened before those incidences and everything. And I know that part of community policing that some people are backing is the warning of the cameras on the police officers and things of that nature, but so that the citizens themselves can have an idea of what is happening when these stops are happening. But I do know that even in some of the famous cases that my cousin, like I said, Jonathan Spurlock, who's a GBI officer, he pointed out to me that we don't always know the fine details of what had happened when these officers may have taken down somebody and either killed them or severely injured them.
Correct, and I'm definitely a fan of body cameras. I think that body cameras gains a sense of the story of what happens in an incident from a procedural standpoint, from a policy standpoint, and also from a legal standpoint. That body camera will tell the story of the interactions of the citizen as well as the law enforcement officer. Getting back to your earlier comment about the perception of police officers and the public. Again, I think the situation is just a matter, as I mentioned before, that officer following policy, following procedure, following his training, and developing that on scene and also within organization as well in terms of a leadership standpoint. And that culture and that climate, again, dictates how an organization is ran as it relates to training and problem solving, identifying problems, analyzing the problems, responding to the problems, and assessing certain situations.
And I don't know if Al's back on the call or not, but I'm hoping that Dean will let me know if he is. But when you dealt with youth and everything, how have you? What kind of ways have you found to get the youth to have a more positive attitude towards police? Because it does seem to me that in our current climate, that there does seem to be more tension between our African American youth and the police than there might have been historically. Humphrey or Al?
Yes, speaking. I'm here.
All right. Al, what are some of your thoughts? You've heard a little bit about what Humphrey had to say, but I was just wondering what some of your thoughts are, in terms of your book and also just how you're able to reach the youth and everything, because you're up in a very metropolitan area in New York City, which, of course, has all kinds of things going on, everything from high gang activities to, of course, a much bigger drug kind of things happening there than in a smaller city like Durham, North Carolina, or even the capital city of Raleigh. So what have been some of the ways that you've been able to reach our youth and get them to understand better how to work with the police? Because I do know that even as a conversation I've had with some of my activist friends, is trying to figure out ways to deal with the police and not have them into, like, escalation situations where they get out of hand.
Yes, I agree. One of the first things I tell the youth is to understand that every police officer is an individual. So you kind of have to give them an opportunity to show who they are before you form some kind of decision. What I suggest they do is to just listen to the instructions by the officer and do what the officer is telling you to do, and just wait out the situation. What I really like to happen, would like to happen, is for the community to get more involved. The police department does do a lot of positive things in the community. There's National Night Out. There's all kind of different events that they do throughout each year. What I would like to see is our youth and our families in general get more involved with these events. This is a olive branch out to the community, and the sooner we take advantage of that and get to know our police and get to know the police officers in the community and in the neighborhoods, the less opportunity, the less chance that there's going to be a problem with you and that officer. And that's one of the first things I try to get them to understand. Each individual each officer is an individual, and that they should be treated as such without coming with the stereotypes that we may bring into the situation. And then also just try to get involved with the community and find out what's going on and learn the officers in your neighborhood.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that I really found interesting. I went to a dedication ceremony of a new police station here in Durham. It was actually the dedication for some artwork that they had put out, and that was maybe about 2 weeks ago. But that's one of the things that our current police chief was saying, as well as some of the artists, was the fact that a lot of times you don't realize that these folks are actually going to the same church as you are, because they're not necessarily coming to the church in their police uniforms, but they might be going to the same church. They might have kids that are in the same school system that your kids are in, and a lot of things, or they might even be, you might bump into them at the grocery store, and of course they're not going to be in police uniform if they're not coming straight from the work in the grocery store. So all of those folks made it a very good point that we need to have this understanding that these are community people and have a better understanding of how they relate to us in the community. Because, like I said, they're oftentimes involved in the same organizations that we are, whether that's frat life, whether that's school life, whether that's church life, or some of the various other civic kind of organizations that folks may or may not be involved in.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the other important things that I do in a workshop, I give a workshop called Preparing for Positive Interaction with Law Enforcement. One of the first things I do, which is kind of a harsh way to start the workshop, but I start the workshop by showing different police interactions that went bad. For instance, the Eric Garner, the Michael Brown situation. I show those videos, and everybody's at full attention. And then I show a series of videos showing police officers being killed just walking up to a car at a car stop and all kind of things, those type of videos. And I show both because my goal is to get everyone to see or attempt to see both sides. You have to understand why the police officers are so on edge, because these things do happen. I know that they are happening in our community, which is why we are on edge, and I get that. But it is also happening to police officers, which is why they are on edge as well. So with the clear understanding of both sides, we can find a middle ground. And I give tips that allow the community to understand that the little things that you can do, like rolling down your windows when your car windows are tinted in a car stop, lowers the threat level for the officer. So now that officer should be approaching you differently, should be approaching you with less stress, less tension, because he's no longer afraid of who might be sitting in that back seat with a gun pointed at them as they walk up to the car. Little things like that. And with that understanding, with the knowledge comes power. And that's my goal, is to bring the power, not necessarily letting everyone know that they have this right and they have that right, but just to understand the police officer's mentality so that we can move forward knowing both sides.
Now, I know here in North Carolina, and particularly in Durham, I'm not sure how it is, Humphrey, in Raleigh, and I definitely don't know how it is in New York, but one place that the police officers are definitely used at in terms of being a force of corrections and a force of security is in our school systems. And they have sometimes actual uniformed police officers, I believe they're called resource officers here in Durham and everything, that are actually there in the school system. And I know that sometimes that can create tensions because They're already there trying to, have whatever tensions they have with their schools and their administrators and